Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we'll be talking about whether or not the Biden campaign has given up on the Sun Belt, whether or not this is the right thing for them to do, and what the electoral implications of such a dynamic would be. So again, it's July 19th. I actually don't know at this point if um, even the Democratic nominee is going to be Joe Biden. I still think it's more likely that he will stay in the race, but there has been an undeniable amount of momentum towards Kamala Harris in the past couple of days. And so for that reason, um, I will be doing this video under the assumption it's Biden, but if it's Harris, I will immediately pivot course and we'll talk about that. Now, let's get into this map. So obviously, we're going to start out by just filling out the states that don't really matter at this point. And these are the states that we know are likely to go a certain way. I'm putting states like New Mexico, which are definitely not safe in the safe column. Same with Minnesota and Virginia, because obviously, in theory, Biden could lose them, but at the same time, if we have a competitive election, he has to win them. So he's going to be at 225 electoral votes here, and then we're going to give Trump, states that he would need to win in order for this to be a truly competitive 50-50 election. That includes states like Texas, Florida. We'll talk about North Carolina at the beginning. But what you're going to see is that the map looks like this. We have the 7 main swing states and Biden at 226, Trump at 219. So the Biden campaign believes their best path is Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Now, the important thing about this path is that they need to win Nebraska District 1. This is one electoral vote. Don't ever let anyone tell you that one electoral vote doesn't matter, because if Trump were to win this state and then carry the Sun Belt, he'd be the president. Now, I know it's an electoral college tie, but the way it would work is the House delegations of each state would vote, and, in a state like, for example, Missouri, it wouldn't be Biden gets 2 votes and Trump gets 6. It would be the state gets 1 vote and the majority of the representatives decide. So 6 of 8 Missouri representatives are Republicans. They likely cast their votes for Trump. Missouri would go 1 point for Trump, 0 for Biden. So in a 269-269 tie, Republicans would win the election. So that's why Biden needs 270, Trump needs 269. Now, let's go back to this map, though, assuming we have our 7 main swing states. Now, Biden, realistically, if he wins North Carolina, he has likely won the election. And, obviously, North Carolina on its own doesn't get him to 270, but if he wins North Carolina, I think he's likely winning Arizona, and I think he's likely winning Pennsylvania or Michigan. And either one of not either one of those states. Actually, he could, in theory, do this and lose the election, but I think he'd likely be winning Nevada. There is a chance that Georgia is to the right of North Carolina this year. That has become increasingly likely. I wouldn't say it's the most favorable outcome, but it's definitely possible at this point. So we have to keep that in mind. But North Carolina, if Biden wins it, I think he has an 80 to 85% chance, if not 90% chance of winning the presidency. So that's something to keep in mind. But let's talk about the Sun Belt. So again, like I said, the Biden campaign believes their best path is through Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. But if you look at the 2020 map, you'll see that, while that is technically true, there wasn't too big of a difference. So the best of these 7 swing states for Joe Biden was actually Michigan. Michigan voted for him by 2.8%. And then you have Nevada in a close second at 2.4%. So let's say, he wins Nevada, he wins Michigan. He still needs 1 or 2 more states here. So beyond Nevada and Michigan, his best state would be Pennsylvania, which is the only other state he won by over a point. But even then, he still needs to win one of these 4 states. And then beyond there, he lost North Carolina, but of Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, his best state was Wisconsin. So that would give him the presidency. And then you would have Trump winning North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona. So let's say this map occurred, right? Like, let's say Donald Trump lost the election this way. The Biden team would be kind of vindicated in the sense that, their best path was through the Rust Belt, but they did need Nevada, or, they did get help from Nevada. They could have lost Nevada and still gotten to 270, but they did need Nevada, kind of to get to 276 to distance themselves a little more. So in theory, regardless of what happens in Nevada, obviously Biden can get to 270 with the Rust Belt. And if you look at the 2020 map, that is more likely because Biden did better in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania than he did in either of Arizona or Nevada or Georgia. Now, there are some problems with this assessment, in my opinion. So the first is that, yes, the 3 Rust Belt states were bluer than these 2 Sun Belt states. Nevada were kind of, I think at this point, isn't too important. Obviously, it's a swing state that could really play a role in determining the election, but we'll talk about it at the end of the video. But, Rust Belt was bluer than the Sun Belt in terms of the swing states, and I get that. Now, here's the thing. It's not by a lot, and if you look at the trends, Georgia and Arizona shifted more towards Biden. than Michigan, Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania. So Wisconsin swung around 1.5% towards Biden. We saw Michigan swing around 3 points towards Biden. Pennsylvania 2 points towards Biden. Arizona, though, 3.5 points towards, or 4 points towards Biden. And Georgia was over 5 points towards Biden. So the swings in the Midwest were a lot smaller than the swings in Arizona and Georgia. And so if those swings were to repeat, Biden would be doing better in Arizona and Georgia than he would be in any of these three states potentially. So you have to keep note of that. And then another thing is that Wisconsin, the difference between Wisconsin and Arizona in 2020 was really quite small. We saw Wisconsin vote for Biden by only 0.7, and Arizona voted for him by 0.3. So, 0.4% is certainly, significant in terms of a swing state, but it does, it's not like Wisconsin's miles more Democratic, more liberal than Arizona. So keep that in mind. And then the last thing I want to say before we really get into this map is that in 2020, the Biden campaign really thought that they had chances in states that they did not really have a chance in. So, for example, they spent a lot of time in Florida. They spent a lot of time in Ohio. And actually, in the week leading up to the election, they sent Kamala Harris to Florida. They actually had a trip to Texas. And in Ohio, I think Biden was actually there on election eve before he did, I think, his closing rally in either Michigan or Pennsylvania. So the Biden campaign really wasted a lot of time in states that they weren't really competitive in. In retrospect, obviously, hindsight is 2020, so you can't be too critical of these actions. But they really, in 2020, spread themselves quite thin, and that's why I think this map could have been better for them if they took their time in Florida, Texas, and Ohio, and threw it all at North Carolina. I think they could have won North Carolina. But the important thing to note is that this time the map is so much smaller for them. Biden doesn't think he has a chance in Florida. He doesn't think he has a chance in Iowa or in Ohio or Iowa or Texas. So the only states he's focusing on are these 7 states. Whereas in 2020, you would have had these 7 states plus Iowa, plus Ohio, plus Florida, plus Texas. And so, again, that kind of plays a role in narrowing the map down in a way that could allow Biden to laser focus on just a handful of states. So, the point of this video is to talk about whether or not Biden should give up on the Sun Belt, because the reports say that they really think that they have. But my take on that is that the average journalist doesn't, have an incentive to report things in a very not fair way, but in a moderate or toned down way. So what I do believe is that the Biden campaign believes their best path is through Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Now, I think that I think the media and the journalists that are covering this campaign have kind of extrapolated to be like, Biden thinks he can't win in Arizona, Michigan, or in Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada. But really what I think it is that they have a priority, and their priorities are in the Midwest, not the Sun Belt. But that being said, they should go to the Sun Belt, absolutely, because winning campaigns never have a tiny path to victory. It's good to narrow down the map. It's good that I think it's good for the Biden campaign that they don't think that they're competitive in Florida or Texas, but concurrently, it'll be very hard for them to win if they have no margin for error, because let's say they only, for the next 4 months, only go to Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Sure, if all goes according to plan, they win the election like this, but that is such a close margin that, one flop in one district in Nebraska and they lose the election. So you need margin for error. Now, I think that they should still be conservative because they're losing this race right now and a lot of things could go wrong. So the first thing that I would say is that they need to, because they have more resources than I do, they need to knock out one of these states here. And I think that it should either be Georgia or North Carolina. I think at this point, Georgia might actually be the better option for Biden to knock out because there's not a statewide race that's really important for Democrats. And the polling in Georgia is actually getting worse for Democrats than it is in North Carolina. These states are similar, and I could see a world where they're both off the board by September. But what's important is that they really have one state that they think that they have a 50% chance of winning on election day. And I think that state's probably going to be Arizona. It could also be Nevada because Nevada is historically bluer than Arizona, but I think this year we have indication that Arizona could be bluer. And in 2022, Arizona was actually bluer by a good amount. So you have to keep that in mind. But the Biden team really should not be trying to thin this map down to just 3 states plus a district in Nebraska. That would be bad for them. And you also have to remember that there are a lot of trends in the South that benefit Democrats more than they do in the North. So, for example, in the state of North Carolina or in Georgia, you have growing metro areas that between 2020 and 2024 have actually grown significantly in terms of population, have brought in educated voters more likely to be Democrat than anywhere in Michigan, Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania. And I think that could help them. And Arizona is actually one of my favorite states for Biden at the moment because I think that there's a mathematical advantage Democrats enjoy there. They don't even enjoy anywhere else in the Midwest. So if I were running the Biden campaign based on what I know right now, I would target the Midwest plus a heavy focus on Arizona. And the great thing about Arizona is that it's bigger than Wisconsin. So let's say Biden were to lose Wisconsin and Nebraska district one for some reason, just two for some reason, excuse me. He could win Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and he'd get to 270. So Arizona is a little more helpful than Wisconsin in that way, and that's why I'm a big fan of Biden going there and making an active effort to win it back, like he did in 2020. So that's where the map stands at this point. Now, I don't live in the Biden campaign headquarters. I don't know what is going on in the minds of these people, but clearly they're not optimistic. Clearly they think they're losing, and I think that's a fair assessment. Right now, if the election were held today, I think Trump would have a good chance of winning. And there is some serious soul searching the Biden campaign has to do. Concurrently, I think that they still have a path. I think there's still, this election's far from over. And the most important thing to remember is that they need to also play defense by playing offense. If they are only going to 3 states, then Trump can say, look, if I'm winning in Arizona by 2 points right now and they're not going there, they're not moving the needle, I can, cross that off for myself. That allows Trump to also, play more aggressively while they're kind of on their heels. So right now, like I said, it's the Midwest, and I think it's one of the Sun Belt states like Arizona, which would be my pick. Could it be Nevada? Sure, I think that would be fine. But they really have to focus on a Sun Belt state, and I think that, again, like I said, it's Arizona. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you expect to happen, and I'll see you all in the next video.